I start by praising God, the compassionate, the merciful. Assalamu alaikum, welcome, and thank you all very much for attending this, what I hope will be a seminal debate between our two respected speakers on the left and the right. I will call upon him to give his piece.
Today's question, Islam or atheism, which makes more sense? I would argue that if we use our reason, our rational faculties, we will definitely come to the conclusion that Islam makes more sense. And I'm going to use two simple arguments to verify that claim. Argument number one, Islam makes sense of the origins of the universe. Argument number two, Islam makes sense of the nature of the Quranic discourse. Now, for those who don't know, a deductive argument is a conclusion that necessarily follows from its premises. And to deny a valid and sound deductive argument is equivalent of denying reality. So listen to the deductive argument. Number one, an actual infinite cannot exist. Number two, an infinite history of past events is an actual infinite. Therefore, an infinite history of past events cannot exist. Therefore, the universe is finite. Therefore, it had a beginning. Now, this is a deductive argument. But we also have complementary evidence, which I call astrophysical evidence. And I'm not claiming to be a physicist. We have an established, acclaimed academic amongst us, so he could tell us the rest of the story. And just to note, even Professor Krauss in his book affirms a beginning to the universe. Interestingly, in Islamic thought, this has been discussed at length. And there is a unanimous conclusion that the universe is eternal. It began in the finite past. Now, since we have shown that the universe must have a beginning, there are four logical explanations for how the universe began to exist. Number one, it was created via nothing. Number two, it created itself. Number three, it was created by something else that was created. And number four, it was created by something uncreated. So that's 0 plus 0 plus 0. It's never going to be 3. It's 0. Therefore, the universe could not have come into existence via nothing. As P.J. Zwart in his publication About Time explains, if there is anything we can find inconceivable, it is that something could arise from nothing. Let's go to the next option. Could the universe create itself? Well, this implies that the universe was in existence and not in existence at the same time, which is an impossibility. So I would argue that the final possible explanation, which is the universe was created by something uncreated, is the most rational explanation. Concluded what the Quran concluded 1400 years ago, that there is a creator, he's one, he's unique, and he's transcendent. As the Quran says in the 112th chapter, say, he is God, the one, the unique, God, the eternal, absolute. He begets not, nor is he begotten, and there is nothing like unto him. Let's go to the next argument, which is the nature of the Quran. Now, the Quranic discourse has been described by Eastern and Western scholars as an intrusive and imposing text. And we don't have time to talk about all the arguments. Historical argument, sociological argument, and a whole array of intellectual responses. But one I want to talk about is called the inimitability and the uniqueness concerning the Arabic language in the Quranic discourse, which Islamic theologians and thinkers argue that it is a miracle. Now, in this light, brothers, sisters, and friends, what we've just discussed can develop into a deductive argument. And listen very carefully. Number one, a miracle is an event that lies outside the productive capacity of nature. In other words, there are no causal links between the event and the nature of the event. Number two, the Quran's literary form lies outside the productive capacity of the nature of the Arabic language. Its literary form cannot be logically explained using the Arabic language. Therefore, the Quran is a miracle. As Professor Bruce Lawrence from Duke University in his book, The Quran, a Biography, on page number 8 said, as tangible signs, Quranic verses are expressive of inexhaustible truth. They signify meaning, laid within meaning, light upon light, miracle after miracle. So we have two key arguments that are based on deduction, not just induction. And to challenge a deductive argument, you have to challenge the premises, and I hope Professor Krauss would do that. If you read the works of Professor Cody and Professor Keith Lehrer in the Epistemology of Testimony published by Oxford, you will see it's a grounded argument which we could discuss later. So the authentic and valid testimony concerning the Quran is, no one has been able to challenge the Quran and produce its literary form. If that is true, then we could draw logical conclusions without even knowing one letter of the Arabic language. We could say, well, could it be from an Arab? Could it be from a non-Arab? Could it be from Muhammad upon whom be peace, or is it from the divine reality? We know it couldn't be from an Arab because they all failed, especially the best Arabs at the time. We know it can't be a non-Arab because you have to know Arabic. We know it couldn't be from Muhammad upon whom be peace because all human expression, if you have the blueprint, you can replicate it. Just look at some replicas of Picasso and Monet in art. And therefore, it must be from the divine.
Well, first I want to thank the people who invited me, who've been very gracious to me. Treated me with more hospitality than I've gotten in many times I've talked, so I guess that's... So if I offend some of you, I don't mean to offend you personally. I may offend some of your ideas, but that doesn't bother me at all. In fact, if you confront my ideas, it will lead to a discussion. And it always begins with you, and I'm supposed to respond to you, and I will to some extent, but it's hard to respond to nonsense. And atheism is not a religion. It's just, in fact, what it could be described as common sense. Okay? What makes sense, I will think that those things that make sense are likely, and those things that don't make sense are unlikely. In fact, that's what science is all about. This idea of deductive arguments, which sounds good, is not the way we learn about reality. Okay? Deductive arguments just don't work. They lead to irrational actions. In fact, if we discuss what common sense is taking your beliefs to conform to the evidence of reality so that you will make rational actions. Do you know what causality means? You use the term.
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
I mean, if you use a term, you should know what it means.
Yes. I have my definition. I have my definition.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'll define, and that's, cause precedes effects. Does that sound good?
No, that's the wrong definition.
Okay, well, I'd like to learn what it is.
Well, for example, there's an interesting book about the quantum physics and causality. Mm-hmm. And the philosophers and philosophers of science and scientists have disagreed on a specific definition. So they've reduced back to a fundamental definition. No. Do you want to have a chat?
Yeah, okay,
a chat?
You quoted a book on physics.
Yeah, I haven't finished yet.
Physicists don't disagree about the definition of causality.
Have you presumed your results here? Do you really want to connect with me as a human being?
No, but...
You've asked me a question, you're answering it for me? I mean, come on.
You quoted physicists, go on.
I said scientists.
Okay. Deduction doesn't matter. The point is, the universe, our visible universe did have a beginning because we can measure it. Whether we liked it or not, or whether we think it's sensible or not, it actually did have a beginning, a factor not in dispute. Our universe had a beginning. Let me ask you, do you think Sharia law should be instituted?
Oh, it depends how you define Sharia law. Do you know anything about Sharia law?
Well, I was going to ask you about it.
Straw manning my position.
Say you're a homosexual man.
Yes.
And you have sex with another homosexual man. Should that be subject to punishment?
In the private home, it's outside of the Sharia law. If they did it in public, which doesn't even happen where you're from, then there's a different story.
Because, of course, homosexuality is perfectly natural. In all animal species, almost, it's natural. It occurs with a 10% frequency. Okay? In fact, there are good evolutionary reasons for homosexuality. So in that sense, there's no reason and a fundamental... Why would a God who thought it was a sin make it natural among all species? I don't think the sheep, by the way, which 10% of sheep are long-term homosexual relationships. Okay? Why would a God who thought it was a sin create sheep who don't have a soul, who aren't able to think about it, be homosexual? Wisdom and learning comes from observing the world around us, and we shouldn't take our wisdom from people who didn't even understand the way the world worked. Thank you.
And no doubt, Hamza, in about 10 minutes,
yes,
you could possibly come back and answer some of those contentions brought up by Professor Krauss.
Now, you used the word a priori more than 3 times, but you rejected deductive thinking. I mean, isn't a priori deductive? I mean, you can't have your cake and eat it, sir.
I tried to talk on your level.
That's the first point. The second point I'd like to make. Actually, let me calm down. The second point I would like to make is that, see, we're not rejecting inductive arguments. Of course we're not. You're forgetting the inductive method, the scientific method. Do you know where it came from, sir? Do you know where it came from?
I know, in fact, there's a remarkable scientific mathematical tradition in the Arab world, if that's what you're going to talk about.
I'm going to talk about Ibn al-Haytham in his book on
sure.
optics.
Yeah.
Read the works of David Lindbergh and others, historians of philosophy and science. And they say it came from Islam. You know why? Because Islam doesn't reject...
No, they came from the Arab world. They didn't come from Islam.
Well, let me give you the link. Let me give you the link. Okay? أَفَلَا يَنْظُرُونَ إِلَى الْإِبِلِ كَيْفَ خُلِقَتْ. Have you not seen empiricism, the creative thing like a camel, and how it was formed or how it was created? This was the basis and this was the poetic justification for the entire scientific method. As Muslims, we go where the science takes us. But we're not stupid. Deductive arguments, they are necessarily true. If you wanted to discuss my argument, you had to break down the premises, which you didn't. The point is, when we make moral judgments, I know you use the word sensible, but other times you're making moral judgments.
I don't talk, unlike you, I don't talk about morals because I try, in this sense, the question before us was not, is atheism moral or is Islam moral? It's, is it sensible? And when people act...
So why have you spent 25 minutes pointing the finger and making moral judgments rather than trying to deal with my argument? Okay, homosexuality is a sin. Again, you try to put words in my mouth and that's not nice. That's not nice.
I asked you questions. I didn't.
You did, but I don't know if you try to answer them for me, which is quite interesting. Now, see, we don't believe homosexual tendencies per se are sinful. It's the manifestation of the homosexual act in public is sinful. Because God would know me better than I know myself. And he would say, fine, you have these tendencies. This is how you shape them. This is how you control them. Like, we don't believe in, like, we should be agitated purely based on the bestial aspects of man. Or, for example, being harmful to human beings is a sin. Right? Just because I have a tendency and I'm a martial artist and I want to harm people, does that mean now, you know, God is wrong just because I have that tendency? I mean, that's not right. Anyway, I'm still looking for some strong counter arguments you made to my points.
There were no points to actually make any counter arguments.
Well, there were because you didn't. Okay, let's put it simply.
Infinity doesn't exist. Yes, it does. Okay.
You didn't. No, I said the quantifiable infinite doesn't exist. I agree the infinite exists. Again, another straw man. The point I'm trying to say is this. We have a deductive argument that the universe is finite. If it's finite, it began to exist. If it began to exist, there are some logical possibilities. Please entertain those logical possibilities. If not, it's equivalent to you coming to my house, having a coffee, I'm talking to you, but you're talking to the window. And I know you have better morals and manners than that, because I know you're highly respected. And we do all respect you in some paradoxical way. But the point is, the point I'm trying to say, Professor Krauss, is that I think it's only fair if you want to pick and choose from the Fox News narrative that you actually trying to change that stance and say, right, what does Sharia law say? Do you have a book of Sharia law at home?
I asked you so I could learn.
No, but you were telling me. Do you have a book? Okay, do you have a book on Sharia law?
No.
And you make judgments,
and
okay, I have a book on atheism, I think it's based on nonsense, but I give you the intellectual epistemic respect to read your worldview. But you've come here blasé, you've come here blasé, almost arrogant, I don't want to judge you, and saying, you know, it's all rubbish, I'm not going to take any of his arguments, I know better than you, which you said that, and I do agree in physics you do, and you've come here making judgments on Sharia law, you don't even have a book on Sharia law.
That's why I asked questions.
And the point is,
I'm sorry.
Let me ask Professor Krauss a question. Why is incest wrong?
It's not clear to me that it's wrong.
Okay.
It's clear to me. There's an evidence. No. Listen to me. Listen to me.
Wait. Let's give him the respect, please. He's got
just a question. If a brother and a sister loved each other and used contraception, is there something absolutely morally wrong about that? And then, by the way, and it was once, and they went off and it didn't affect anything else, I'd have to think about it because I don't think there's any absolute condemnation of that fact. If they love each other and care for each other and they go off and it doesn't affect anything else,
okay.
Would I recommend it? No.
From an Islamic perspective, in a religious perspective, you see that objective morals, that even pointing the finger and saying, you know, you're wrong, you're nonsense, Sharia law is backward, these kind of strong emotive things, I think we can only be that emotive and strong in an objective sense if you have God as a grounding for your objective moral values. Because if you take God out of the picture, he's the only concept that transcends human subjectivity. So from this perspective, you don't have an ontological grounding for objective moral truth. That, look, if the universe began, and we could show that maybe empirically or deductively. My focus is on the deduction here. And I don't think you really address on the infinite perspective when we said that this is based on axioms and conventions in the mathematical realm of discourse, but in discrete physical parts, as you've admitted in your book, that can't happen. So we have a deductive argument the universe began, which means it once wasn't there. Ontologically, if there wasn't a cause for that, you wouldn't have the universe in the first place. The second point I like to make.
No, there's you see the photon that's lighting you up from that thing?
Yes.
It didn't exist before it was emitted by the electron.
Yes.
Okay? It didn't exist.
Yes.
It wasn't there.
And you're saying there's no cause?
It wasn't, point is, yeah, I'm saying, forget all that. I just talked about our universe.
Yes.
Are you agreeing with me that our universe doesn't have to have any purpose or reason to create it?
No, of course I'm not. I don't agree with you.
Well,
but that's not my argument. My argument is, deductively, was the universe once absent?
Yes.
Yes. If that's the case, then ontologically, which means the nature and source of reality is that it couldn't have come into being without a cause.
Well, okay.
To the physics, I don't disagree with you. I highly respect that. But all of that is inductive in nature.
No, it's not.
Of course. What is it based on? Is it deductive?
It's based on observation.
Which is inductive.
Well, no, it's empirical. It's empirical. The problem is, it's empirical.
Okay, well, what's empirical?
Okay. Look, I don't care. Look,
do you have an infinite set of observations? Mm-hmm. Have you had an infinite set of observations?
Now, if you're going to tell me I read your something you wrote which really misrepresented science, you're absolutely right. If you're going to tell me science can never tell anything with absolute certainty.
Yes.
Okay.
Except
things that are wrong.
Yes.
That's what science can tell.
I agree.
Science can tell us the Earth isn't 6,000 years old.
Good.
Science can tell us that science can tell us many things, and so
I don't disagree with you.
Okay.
I don't disagree with you.
Okay, so the fact that
straw man, you made a conclusion in your book. You said this is why you can't have an infinite anything.
No.
You said that.
You show me where I can't have an infinite anything.
Yeah.
Did I talk about infinite energy density?
Let me
talk about whether the universe might be infinite?
Let me find it for you.
And by the way, if I did, I was wrong.
One second. That's honorable. That is honorable.
That to me is the worst kind. That's
honorable. No, that is honorable. I admit.
Offensive about these arguments is you quote people as if what they say matters. But the great thing about science is there are no authorities.
I agree.
There are no scientific authorities. Everyone can be wrong, and we all are.
Yeah, 1 second. 1 second. Just bear with me. He wanted it here somewhere.
No, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, please. No, this is good. This is good. Okay, so here we go. Infinity is not a pleasant quantity, however, at least as far as physicists are concerned, and we try to avoid it whenever possible. Clearly, the energy of empty space, or anything else for that matter, cannot be physically infinite.
The energy of anything.
No. You said...
Sorry.
Or anything else for that matter.
The energy of anything cannot be physically infinite.
Where's that there?
The energy of empty space or the energy of anything else.
You're reading another book now.
I wrote that. Well, Mohammed may not be here to talk about the Quran, but I'm here to talk about my book.
And you don't even know your own book!
And my book.
Okay, I'm really sorry to interrupt you, Professor Krauss, Hamza. You're going at it hammer and tongs, but there's a whole bunch of guys out there who want to sort of have a say, okay? Okay, guys, settle down. We're going to get the first question right now.
Okay. Your whole book is based on mathematics, and mathematics, as you know, is based on deduction.
No, it's based on evidence.
Okay, and you use mathematics throughout your book, and you say deductive...
Show me the equations in my book. Show me the equations. Okay. Are there equations?
Yes, they are.
Well, they're one or two. The book's 200 pages long.
Okay, you said deductive method, deduction doesn't work, and maths is based upon deduction.
No, I said it may not work.
No, you said it in the opening. Deduction doesn't work, and your book is full of mathematics and deduction. Mathematics is based upon deduction. So how do you... it's actually a good introduction to logical fallacies.
Oh.
In the opening,
your book... doesn't have to
okay,
work.
Let me just repeat the question because you didn't understand the first time, right? You said deduction doesn't work, and your book has mathematics. And what I want to ask you is...
Fine, I agree with you. I agree with you. Want to more, again, emphasize that atheism is not a belief. Okay, it's not a belief. As a scientist, I don't believe anything. As a scientist, I don't believe anything. If you use the word belief, scientists shouldn't use the word belief. There are things that are more likely and less likely. In fact, in the spirit of Hamza, science can say nothing with absolute certainty. It can say something is very, very likely or something is very, very unlikely based on the evidence of experience and testing. I can't see you, but I know you're there. Okay, and so
Scientism is, let me define it for you. It is the assertion that science is the only way to form conclusions about reality, okay? That statement itself is, one, self-defeating, because science can't prove that statement. Secondly, science itself, that statement itself, is flawed because science can't prove mathematical truths. Also, it can't prove ontological truths. It can't prove moral truths, historical truths. If you study epistemology, sorry,
hold on, how do you know it can't prove historical truths?
Let me make a point, sir.
How do you know it can't prove moral truths? So you're making these
Okay,
presumptions.
okay, let me make my point. How do we know Aristotle existed? Which
That's
is,
not knowledge.
such as, so testimony, for example.
Oh,
authentic
testimony.
and valid testimony.
Oh my goodness. You really believe in testimony as proof of do you really believe that?
But Professor Krauss, the
Do
whole...
you really believe that because I say
let's not dig a hole for ourselves.
someone did something, it happened?
Go to the Berkeley website on the scientific method. It says one of the majority
I don't
aspects...
go to websites, I just do science.
Yeah, okay, well, that's very great. Well, do this science then. Listen to this science. The Berkeley website says the key part of the scientific method is also the workings of other scientists. That
You test and you don't trust.
Yeah.
And you repeat their experiments because you don't trust
Yes,
the
I
results.
agree.
That's
Wait.
the way science works.
Okay, I'll give you an example. Have you done every single experiment concerning evolution?
No.
So you believe it's true? What else do you want to say?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم.
أم خلقوا من غير شيء أم هم الخالقون أم خلقوا السماوات والأرض بل لا يوقنون